Every week I like to check out what's trending in the top 10 on Netflix, and I'm never surprised when I see that a documentary is in that list somewhere. I don't ever really bother with them though. Usually I opt for whatever the big movie release is. However, the top 10 this week, slim pickings. In fact, 2 of the slots are taken up by the same movie, K-pop Demon Hunters and the sing-along version. Good movie, but I don't need to cover it again. And so I said to myself, you know what, sir? I call myself sir as all other people do because I'm so well respected. I should check out the #1 movie right now, Unknown Number, the High School Catfish. Sure hope the documentary's better than the title. And you know what? I watched the movie and I have thoughts, and now I'm going to review it here because that's what I do. In a spoiler-free review, pump the brakes. After that's done, I will go into some of the spoilers, but I'll let you know ahead of time. Let's begin. For most of the townsfolk in the small buttfuck town of Beale City, Michigan, life was pretty fine. I mean, according to the documentary, there's virtually nothing to do there. It's essentially a wasteland in Mad Max, where everybody's glued to their phones for an average of 13 hours a day. Looks like I know where my next vacation destination is. But for one high schooler here, life isn't all gumdrops and sticker packs. No, for Lauryn Licari, 2 years of her high school were an absolute nightmare because she was being harassed almost on a daily basis for 2 years by a complete unknown. And no, I'm not talking about Timothy Chalamet. She wishes. And this documentary doesn't want us to know either unless we, knew about the story ahead of time or watched any of those YouTube channels that break this shit down in like 10 minutes instead of extending it for an hour and a half. Thankfully, if you're watching this and unsure of who this mystery person is, you don't have to sit through 90 minutes to get the answer. In fact, it's told, I think about an hour in, and then you're left with another 30 minutes of the story meandering about. Which gets to my big criticism about Unknown Number. It's unnecessarily long and probably shouldn't have been a movie to begin with. It's something you could summarize in about 2 minutes flat. Since this is based on the events of 2020, and this is a modern 2025 movie, it's visually very pretty, and it presents a lot of information in a very nice fashion. You have some slick editing, you have some great well-lit interview sets, lamps are put at just the right location. They did a good job kind of setting the stage for these people to tell their story. A story that primarily revolves around Lauryn and her boyfriend Owen, the golden couple. They seem to be perfect together, unless you're the person leaving these awful text messages, body shaming Lauryn on a daily basis, telling her to off herself, telling her that she's not worthy to be with Owen, that he hates her and he's cheating on her. Imagine waking up every single day for multiple years to nothing but vile, hate-filled comments directed at not only your personality, but also your appearance and everything you do. That would be absolutely crippling to a person who's just trying to do their best and get through every day of life like many other folks. And so now that you know a little bit about me and what I deal with in the comments every day on my show, imagine what this teenage girl is going through that hasn't formed that same sort of hardened shell that a middle-aged man who's dead inside has. That's right, internet comments. You can't hurt that which has no feelings. So bring it on, fuckers! Now, in all reality, this was a disgusting story about a young girl and her boyfriend who were both dragged into the mud for no reason at all. And she seems to be a really sweet kid, which makes it all the more disgusting. Because the text messages she was receiving said some really vile shit, making fun of her appearance, calling her a whore and other ugly names, and just belittling her every day. This would lead to parents getting involved, the school getting involved. And the film, again, presents this in a very nice fashion. We get on-camera testimonials from the victims, from parents, from the principal, from the policeman working on the job, from an FBI agent. It all looks very nice and clean. Plus, since this is based on events that are only a few years old, we do get body cam footage from police officers, which brings you into the scene in a much more intimate way. All that said, does not need to be a 90-minute movie. There's not enough meat on the bones to sustain it for that long, and the movie even knows it because it gets to the ending a full 30 minutes before the movie's done. There was a while there, a year or so back, where I got really into some of the YouTube channels that would talk about stories like this, and they would present them in like 15 minutes tops. So you got all the key players, you got the build-up, and you got the payoff, and then you could move on to your day or listen to the next intriguing story. I love these types of channels because the people involved are typically really good storytellers, and they really bring you into the scenarios. And they're really good at pacing things out so that there's enough mystery, enough buildup, enough intrigue, but eventually you get to that conclusion in a satisfactory amount of time. The problem with this Catfish movie, Unknown Caller, whatever the hell it is, it takes way too long to build. And by the time you get to that crescendo, it's just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Fine. It just takes way too long. It's a slow build. And there's not enough intricate details here to go into different directions. There's barely a branching path off of the main narrative. The other big issue with this movie is, since it's based on real events, using real people from this small town of Michigan, they're all very salt-of-the-earth, blue-collar, nice folk. There's no wild cards, there's no crazy looking characters, and so it's just not that interesting to listen to these people share their stories like it would be watching a reality TV show, where the casting directors will go out of their way to find some of the most insane people that make for a more fun show to watch. The most interesting thing about these people were several of them wore tech vests, and the principal decked his ass out like he's going to the Oscars. This guy had a really nice suit on. He slicked the hair back. He's got a tie that matches 1-to-1 with the silk shirt. I mean, he was dressed to the tens, and I have to give him props for that. He really did it. The only other thing I found kind of fascinating was anytime they'd go back to Lauren's father in the interview chair, he was kind of propped up in a way where it looked like he was on a clothes hanger, just kind of sitting here in an awkward pose. Everything all around is serviceable. The production is nice. You got some good dramatic music playing when necessary. The people are all fine to watch and listen to. Since I don't watch a lot of the documentary stuff, perhaps I'm not the demographic for Netflix, which I would imagine at this point are people that passively listen to this stuff, occasionally looking up from their own phones, and don't really engage with the material, as someone like I do who wants to watch the movie front to back, no interruptions, fully engaged. Netflix has spent a lot of money. They've put a lot of resources into the documentary series and then making movies based on those events. So clearly the market is huge for this stuff. But the long or the short of it is, this movie was perfectly average, did not need to be this long. I don't think there was really a full movie to be made here. More of a 30-minute tops sort of a situation, or again, you watch one of those channels that breaks it down in a fascinating way. So as I stated, we're gonna be transported just a few years back to Beale City, Michigan. Lauren has her whole life ahead of her. She's only, I believe, 14 when the text messages start coming in. She's got a great boyfriend who a lot of the ladies seem to be into. And by ladies, I mean grown-ass adults. He caught the fancy of one woman in particular, which I'm going to get to in a second, but this poor Lauren is going to go to school while her parents are at home, kind of having a rocky relationship. Her mom has a couple jobs that she's trying to handle. Her dad's working his ass off. They have moved several times over the last few years, but her parents are her rocks. They're there for her when she needs help. And her mom, in particularly Kendra, has always been by her side through this disgusting phone ordeal where these texts are coming in, harassing her on a day-to-day. As the movie unfolds, the parents will get more involved. They'll get frustrated with the school, who they believe isn't doing enough. They'll get extra frustrated at law enforcement, who's trying to figure out where the calls are coming from, but somehow this person is staying masked, and they're able to keep contact with the kids even after they change phones and phone numbers, which means the person doing this has to have some sort of inside information about these two. At one point, the key suspect in the investigation is a fellow high school student who used to have a little bit of a thing with Owen. I believe her name is Sophie, but don't quote me on the name. It's kind of irrelevant because it's going to turn out she had nothing to do with any of this. Sadly, the 2-year mark is the breaking point for the couple, and Owen and Lauren actually split up. They finally gave in. They were fighting more because of the messages, and I think they believed, hey, if we break up and give this person what they want, it'll go away. But actually did the opposite. The messages came in faster. They were meaner. And it finally got to the boiling point where an FBI agent had to be brought in. Using a bunch of smart man computer skills, the guy contacts Verizon. They see that the phone messages going to Lauren are via a masked IP address. There's only 2 options available in this area. From there, the FBI agent requests all phone numbers that both Lauren and Owen have. Doesn't matter if it's your best friend, a family member, your grandma, because one of them is going to match up with the masked IP address, and then bingo, bango, bongo, penis. We have our perpetrator. And eureka, he strikes gold. They are able to find out exactly where the phone calls are coming from, and to Lauren's shock, and maybe you the viewer, they're coming from inside the house. Outside of Lauryn and Owen, no one wanted to get to the bottom of this more than Lauren's mother, Kendra. She was constantly advocating for her daughter. Her and her best friend would go to the school all the time, harass the principal, get to the cops and say, "What are you doing? Do you have any leads at all? What are you gonna do to figure this out?" And it turns out the reason Lauren's mom was so invested is because she was the one behind it all. Kendra Licari's had a hard life. In fact, when she was 17, something tragic happened to her, which is what she's going to end up using as an excuse for catfishing her daughter. Yeah, she plays the sexual assault card when confronted about everything that went on, crying to the cameras and saying, it's because of my past. I drudged this all up and took it out on my daughter. That doesn't really explain why you're so into her boyfriend, Owen, but we'll leave that aside. She was also lying to her husband for multiple years, saying that she had 2 jobs when in fact she had none. Possibly being let go, possible she never even had them to begin with. So every day for 2 years, she put on a show to her family, pretending to get ready to go to work. I guess in a sense, she was, because it became her full-time job to spy on her daughter, Photoshop mean photos of her, come up with these disgusting messages to send the poor girl and her boyfriend at the time, and overall just make life a living hell for all of them. They were also financially strapped due to her not actually having a job, but pretending she did. So that put her husband out of the picture all the time, trying to work. When the police finally confronted Kendra about this, her daughter was home and Kendra's hugging her child while admitting to everything. Imagine sitting there trying to take in that your mom has been the one behind all of this, but then also acting like the hero of the story, coming to your aid whenever you needed her support. By the time this all wound down, Lauren's only 15 or 16 years old, and her best friend stabbed her in the back that entire time. Kendra would end up going to jail for 1.5 years, but she would remain close pen pals with her daughter that entire time. Because believe it or not, kids really love their parents, even if their parents don't seem to love them back. There was a book I read years ago called A Child Called It. I think it is a trilogy actually, but it's a devastating book. I don't even know if I'd recommend you reading it, but it really is eye-opening to how much pain, humiliation, anguish, suffering a kid can take at the hands of their own parents, and how much they are willing to forgive because they want their mom or dad to be there for them. Now, Netflix has gotten heat over the years for some of the ways they portray these documentaries, or more importantly, who gets paid for them. And I do think it's kind of in bad taste that Kendra probably is getting paid for this. I don't know, maybe not. Hopefully, anything she makes goes to some sort of a charity. But based on the little bit I heard her talk and the lack of empathy or regret that she showed in this, makes me think that no, she probably just cashed in on this awful thing that she did to her kid and her family. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Netflix said, hey, you need to do this for your daughter. You're not getting a dime. I highly doubt that. But anyway, as I stated, this movie was too long. It was an interesting story, if only because it's just so tragic. But there you go. I gave you the summary. Lauren's with her father. I don't believe she's seen her mother in person since she was released from jail, which is a good thing. The woman deserves no respect, love, or adoration from her daughter going forward. She was an absolute trash fire of a person, and I doubt that she really snapped in a 2-year span. I think that she was probably a pretty garbage person from the onset. But again, let me know your thoughts. Please think of subbing to the show. Adam Does Movies on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Hopefully I can cover more documentaries in the future if this one does a decent amount of numbers. And extra doubly, I hope I see one that's got a bit more to it and justifies a full feature-length film. All right, that's all I got for you. Take care. If you appreciate my content, I am a one-man band. This is a ton of work, and you want a way to give back. Head on over to patreon.com/AdamDoesMovies. There's tons of exclusive perks over there. Look at these awesome supporters so far. There's some of the best people on this planet, and you could be one of them. You could be right there alongside, and I would appreciate it.